We are the Arcturian Collective. Hello and namaste.
Hello and namaste.
Namaste.
Again, you have our unconditional love, and we thank you for your willingness to co-create with us in this moment of your time. How would you like to interact with us today? How may we be of service to you?
Yes, thank you for showing up today.
Thank you for showing up.
I had the urgent need for a channeling, and somehow I just have to follow my excitement, so I put out a call, and Duve was able to step up and make some connections. So I don't know why, but it seems to be some questions that I need to answer, and I think some of them are related to the crossing point that we're at, people say. So first off, we're 2 days away from the 21st of December 2020, and can you guys tell us a little bit about the significance of that date without the filter of Duve?
Yes, well, we can try, but we can give you our perspective at least.
Mm-hmm.
So we have talked a bit about this once before, and maybe the channel can refer you through that channeling as well.
Mm-hmm.
But what we have said then, we feel is still very relevant now as well. You could say that the 21st, in one way, what you could say is that your switch of a collective switch in consciousness is about halfway, you could say. And just as what the solstice represents, when the darkest days are at the maximum and now you return to the light, you could say that also within this collective switch there is now again this date is in a sense somewhat symbolic because of what it represents in your how it is connected to the planets and this sun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But you could say that this is actually a switch where from before the collective needs to go into the darkness quite a bit. They need to process their stuff. They need to look at their inner issues that come up, their difficult emotions, and learn to deal with that. And in a sense, you could say that also the collective has needed to do that. And you can see by the COVID crisis, in a sense, or at least how you collectively chose to respond to that, because there could have been different choices made, so you would have been at a different place where you are now. But you could say that last year got a lot of people tested, confronted them with their issues. You could say it's a bit of a dark night of the soul for your collective. And you could say that the 21st represents, at least symbolically, but also energetically, although we would say exactly this date is a bit, you could use it as a reference point to look back on. But you could say it's a switch of the energies where you have gone to the darkest as a collective, and now it's time to open up again. Now it's time to heal, it's time to let the love in, it's time to connect to your hearts, it's time to really dare speak your own truth in a kind way, not dismissive of others, but also making very sure that you speak your truth and not some programmed truth by authorities, by mainstream media, by other people that might try to manipulate you and others for their benefit instead of that they really have your best interest at heart. And we feel that the 21st can be a symbol for people in that sense to step into their power, and the more people that do that, then also the collective will shift, and just like the solstice, you will move into lighter days. Also the collective will move into more and more integrated frequencies where instead of having done a lot of the difficult work now, you can have a bit more fun again. You can see each other smile again, go dance with each other, make jokes together, celebrate. So if you can make the 21st about that, then we would say it's a very useful reference point, both for now to accelerate your growth and to do the inner work, but also afterwards looking back at this period, let's say in 10 years, then you could say the 21st was one of the reference points where this switch in the collective can be attributed to. We will say the 21st from our perspective at this moment will not be the only reference point data. There could be 2 or maybe even 3 more. But we would say the 21st will definitely, in a sense, in your history books, it can be used as one of those reference points.
Great. And there's also a reference to the term the splitting of worlds.
Yes.
If that resonates, but people have been talking about that for quite some time. And some even claim that this is some of, the first train or the first split is this 21st, leading up to the event
Yes.
in a few years. What's your view on this?
Well, we would say that we can agree with that to a rather large degree. Our perspective on this is more that you could say that there will be an infusion of light or an infusion in frequency. You could say physical reality. We have used a metaphor before where you as a collective are in the process of going from ice towards water. So your world becomes more fluid. You could say that after the 21st, your world will be more fluid. Now, if you are moving downwards and you hit the ice, you'll stay there because the collective will keep you there because the collective is frozen. Now, if you want to go up, you probably will stay there too because the collective is frozen. So you're much more anchored to the collective.
Exactly, yes.
And what will happen now is because it becomes much more fluid, if you're on your way down, and we regret to say this in a sense, from the Earth perspective, but if you are on a downward trajectory, because it's much more fluid now, you're gonna be going down much quicker and deeper than you would have before. And this can result in, for example, people mentally breaking or people choosing to end their lives because they cannot take the, in a sense, self-created suffering because they are unaware of how their mental emotional system works. They are unaware that they, in a sense, create their own suffering and not taking responsibility, not understanding it. And since, in a sense, this safety net falls away, these people can be much easier to, in a sense, sink to the bottom.
Does this also include evil, in a sense, that kind of negative energy? So
generally,
they
yes.
will...
Yes, because evil people, in a sense, haven't really understood themselves.
Exactly.
And if you believe you should take hold of other people to keep yourself up, and they suddenly turn into water, you have a lot less to hang on to. So if those people don't change really quickly, they will, in a sense, sink away as well. Now, the other thing as well, if you were on the upward trajectory, what you will see is that it will be much easier to create the desired results. Now, this might be a bit of a learning curve as well, because suddenly when your car goes twice as fast or 3 times as fast as before, you might hit a couple of bumpers on the road. So, but we would say if you understand this and you understand the principles, simply use that to put yourself on the straight line again. So in a sense, it's also important for the people that are already working a lot with themselves to really intensify their work so they understand the law of creation better, how they create their own reality or how they co-create, how their mental emotional body affects what they attract in their physical reality. And if something does pop up that they don't like, that it's important that they go into that with understanding, maybe ask for help around other people that have dealt with these things before, and then work through it on their own responsibility and ownership. But it's totally okay to ask help. And then you can see that a lot of these people will get a lot stronger as well, and if they branch out to each other and start co-creating in win-win-win situations, then you will see that the people with good ideas will, you could say that some of the good ideas that have been on your planet for the last sometimes over 100 years, but never really saw the light of day because they were suppressed, now suddenly they can float to the surface. And if people are flexible and are recognizing that's a good idea, I'm going to put my shoulders behind this, I'm going to put my energy behind this, I don't necessarily care too much about a specific reward for it, I just feel the energy, I'll let the frequency be my reward for now, and I'll see what will come out of that later on when it comes to money or fame or whatever currency they think abundance should come in. So if people can understand that frequency, feeling good, is abundance, and if you make that the center point of your abundance, then a lot of these good ideas can suddenly gain a lot of momentum, and you can shift the collective in a very positive way as well. So yes, does that answer most of the question?
But the Earth, it's is it true that it will actually increase its vibratory frequency, and it's therefore it's important to also try to follow the Earth's frequency, and if you are in a low frequency, then you basically fall off. It's hard to catch up with the Earth's natural frequency.
Yes, exactly.
And that is what defines the splitting of worlds, that you're actually able to catch on and jump on the correct Earth in that sense.
Yes.
Is that correct understood? Correct.
Yes, that's workable. Yes.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so thank you for that insight. And of course, we have to ask about the Pfizer vaccine. You don't have to elaborate that much, but
we would not recommend anybody taking a vaccine.
I mean, not a vaccine. Okay, so
specifically to COVID.
Yeah. Okay.
But in general, we would say about this. What you see now, in a sense, is really this testing of the external authorities, right? So it's the mainstream media, the external authority, that tells you to be very afraid. Then it is the politicians, another external authority, that tell you to give your freedoms over to them so they will save you. And then there's the pharmaceutical industry that says, believe in our authority and we will take care of your health. So in a sense you could say there's a triple threat or a triple challenge now. And if people have not understood that they should stop giving away their power to external authorities, then that can have negative results. So we would really say you don't necessarily need to not look at what people say. You don't necessarily need to ignore what people invite you to have a look at. But if you go into these requests of external authority to give your power to them, then we would say don't do that. Listen to them, see if you can do your own research when it comes to these things. But it is actually very important that this lesson is learned by as many individuals as possible, that they should stop giving away their own creative power towards external authorities. This has been a cycle that has been going on for a long time on your planet. But you could say it's a bit like a child growing up. At a certain point in time, the child needs to say, you know what, when it hits puberty, I need to find my own truths. I need to find my own way to live my life. And thank you, parents, for having assisted me as far as you could. And I would love to listen to your counsel, but I won't simply do what you tell me, because actually I know who I am. And I actually might have a higher frequency than you had, because that's simply the evolution of how it works. And let me find my own path, let me understand my own inner strength, and let me work from that inner strength. And then a lot of people will see, if they do that, that they don't need mainstream media, they don't need political systems, and they don't need pharmaceutical industries to help them. All these things can be done either by people themselves or by connecting from a voluntary and heartful place to people you trust and are well respected, peer-reviewed, not by other external authorities, but by people you know. So you get this network of trust where, in a sense, you become your own authorities, which is a very important step.
Yeah, and I completely agree with all that. But the thing is that, you know, I have family members that have bought the narrative that the vaccine is a good thing, and it's going to stop all the craziness. And for me, it's really hard to respond to that, because I understand the safety they can feel by, even though it's a placebo or whatever, and the security they can feel by just doing it. But it's really hard for me to even respond to it, because personally, of course, I would never do that. I am in that place that you're talking about, but you know, all my family members are not. So that's the hard thing.
Yes.
And I understand. Let's just leave it at that. We don't have to elaborate more on that, actually.
No, what you can do is just be as factual as all. We're not saying it's like super dangerous to take the vaccine. We're not. Obviously, there can be some health issues, but if you are a healthy individual, there generally shouldn't be any too complicated complications. So we're not necessarily saying don't do it out of a health perspective, but we're also saying it from the vibration.
Exactly.
Because every person that says, yes, I will take the vaccine, in a sense, it's a vote for I have not understood my own sovereignty.
Exactly.
So I'm not ready, in a sense. Yes, this sounds a bit hard, but in a sense it says I'm not ready yet to have a certain level.
Yes.
The only thing we would say is to simply be very factual about it. Let them understand that the disease isn't deadly, especially not in certain age ranges. So it really doesn't make sense to take a vaccination for something that, if you would have gotten it naturally, the chances of you building natural immunity is 99.8%. It's actually higher than what the producers of the vaccines are saying they can guarantee. So from that sense, it's really
you're preaching to the choir. I know all this. It's just let's just leave it at that. Yes. And I totally agree with that. Is there any information about where the COVID or the coronavirus originated? Do you have any facts on that, or is that something it's...
Well, we would say it comes from the Wuhan lab.
Yeah, okay. So I think I asked that before. Okay,
yes.
Great. And also, if you read the collective energies, I know they're fluctuating a lot at the moment, right?
Yes.
So it's kind of hard to predict what's going on with the world at this point. At least that's what other sources are claiming. So can you agree with the...
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's also very important to stay in that own power. Understand that the people that are suddenly going through the ice and sinking lower, they will try to grab onto you like never before to drag you down with them. So it's very important that people really know how to keep up their own frequency and to really cut cords, in a sense. Don't allow people with kind of negative parasitical energies to lower your frequencies. Don't connect to them at all unless they're family members that you love dearly and are willing to make that sacrifice for. But especially when it comes to other outsiders, keep in your own power, understand your own strength, your own inner mastery, connect to people that also understand that, and keep those frequencies high.
Yes, great. I was alluding to the presidency actually when it comes to the reading energies. Is it still up in the air, or is that something that you can read? What's going to happen?
It's going to be we would say there's a lot of unpredictable factors in there.
It's still impossible to say at the moment.
Well, we would say it's pretty obvious. Well, also we actually would prefer not to answer that question, in the sense that it shouldn't matter who becomes the president. Become your own president. That's really the message of this whole thing. Instead of, this invitation of
we're
people
humans, so
to
this
put
is
their trust into the external power.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter if it's Trump or Biden or another candidate that is being put on the stage.
I think for many people it really does. Not for me personally.
But we would say all the people that find it very important all have not gotten the lesson, and in a sense that's why it is so chaotic, because the people supporting one president
I totally
are
agree.
learning a lot of feedback on that. The people supporting another president are getting the same, and then we would say there is a significant chance that neither of them get what they want, and that might be a bit of an anticlimax for both, because here they had put all their hopes into this one person, and then they made this kind of a battle between it. And sometimes, just like a battle with brothers, even though you're fighting, you also feel the connection. And then suddenly, nobody gets what they wanted.
Is that something that you're reading now as a probable? Because this is something I've heard from other sources as well.
Yes.
That it's actually not 100% sure that they will have like a legit president.
We definitely feel that there is a big chance that there is some interim form of leadership for a while.
It's going to be interesting. I love these questions because these are actually verifiable,
Yes.
Not that I need to verify any legitimacy of on your part, but it's always...
We get it, but also, just to give our perspective on it, in a sense, it's verifiable, but that also means that there is expectation. And if you create from a place of expectation, you actually, in a sense, lock into certain timelines that we would say, especially when it comes to these things with, if people find it very important, what kind of external authority will tell them, in a sense, how to live their life. If people lock into either of those, what you do is you actually cut yourself off from much higher timelines. So in that sense, we're sometimes a bit hesitant to respond to these things, because it might actually empower people in their giving away power to an external authority, and the moment you do that, you have automatically attracted a timeline where that will be reflected in one way or the other. While if people become their inner authority, work from their heart, speak their own truth, connect to like-minded people, then you can create much more beautiful timelines.
Exactly, yes. Again, we're humans. I totally see what you're talking about, and
again,
and
also
it's so true.
We don't judge any of this.
No. I know that. I know that. It's just sometimes we need to have that, that reminder that we are, we can think more, in higher. Octave in a sense we can be smarter, and the way we create our reality, and but we're stupid sometimes. Okay, so thank you so much for that. I'm gonna leave the personal things for the end. Okay, so what's the status of the... Okay, so not falling into the same trap again, but what's the current status of the deep state control, if you...
Well, we would say they're definitely sinking through the ice to a degree.
Yeah.
So they're... with the... This is... We might have alluded to this somewhat before.
Yeah.
They are definitely... Their ice is becoming a lot thinner, and they notice this. You could say the whole COVID scare is to a degree an effort to re-thicken the ice. Like, they noticed that in a collective, people were waking up, in a sense, too much. So they really felt that they needed to thicken the ice by pumping in a lot of fear into the collective. And you can, in a sense, you can see that they have successfully done that. However, whenever one does something like this, we would say in the past year also more people have woken up to these machinations than have in the past 5 or maybe even 5-7 years. So it's a bit of both, because they chose to use, in a sense, quite extreme measures, because they felt their ice getting thinner. In a sense, their actions worked, but there's now also a much bigger part of the collective that won't fall for kind of these things again. So
it's a very polarized planet at the moment, right?
exactly. We would say if things come to peace at this moment again, and people really kind of reconnect with the frequencies that was before the crisis, then they will suddenly find they're on thinner ice even as before the crisis. And there is a bit of a risk to that as well, because we still feel there might be some false flags, potentially waiting for them to, in a sense, repeat the same trick, to scare people in a different way and get them to fear each other, to become angry with each other, to polarize people against each other. But again, you could also say that these energies offer these frequencies in a sense as a test. Have we understood ourselves? Have we understood each other? Do we understand that we're part of each other? Can we love our neighbors like we love ourselves? Or can we love ourselves like we love our loved ones? It goes both ways. So it's a process of intense learning, let's put it that way.
So tell me, how are you guys able to read the collective energy? How is that, if you can put it into a visual context, is that possible?
You will give it a try. Do you have any experience of, for example, going to a family party?
Yes.
Where you basically step in the room and you, in a sense, immediately get, oh, these people are having fun. Or you step into the room and you're like, uh-oh, somebody said something wrong.
Somebody farted.
Exactly. So we would say it has a bit to do with that. Now, we as a collective are tuned in, you could say, to a certain amount of people. You could say we have our league, our groups of individuals we are more in tune with than others, and you could say simply by reading their frequencies we get a certain feel as well, because their frequencies are generally quite open, so you could say they're kind of the tuning forks into the collectives.
And conduits for the energies?
To a degree, yes. And simply by reading those frequencies, we sometimes get a feeling of where it is. But
are these star family from the Arcturians you're talking about that are acting like
yes,
those tuning forks?
You could say it like that. They are, in a sense, they have more of our autograph in them. So they already, since they were born, have some of our frequency in them, and because of that, it's easier for us to connect through them into your collective.
Okay, so it's not like you're outside the atmosphere and you can visually see that, okay, the aura is yellow, so this means this. It's not like that, because
it's a bit of both, actually.
Okay.
Yes, but we would say generally the more the more correct tool for us, or the more trustworthy tool, is to go to tap into our sensors we have outside. And then you could say the aura is more the feeling you get when you meet the family party. But as you know, what can happen in a family party if somebody just farted, maybe the aunt say, "What is this?" And then it can escalate the wrong way. Or another person can fart even louder and everybody starts laughing.
Exactly.
So that is where the volatility is.
Mm.
So sometimes we would say the external, that thing it's readable, but it can switch a lot quicker than if we have, in a sense, if we're tuning into our own frequencies. Just to say, like, a child can be very joyful and happy. But then maybe they learn something that a toy broke. And from that ecstatic happiness, they suddenly are into anger and sadness, like in the blink of a second. Mm. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but you could say that the frequency of that happiness and joy is very flowy and it's not very anchored yet. So it's not very grounded. And this is a bit the same for your collective. Sometimes people are really happy, but it's just because they've had that good day. But then they see a negative thing on the news, and they kind of let their frequency be influenced by that, and they go down in frequency. So by tuning into these people that we are more connected with than others on the planet, in a sense we're connected to all, but it's just that we can read some better. They're more useful because they're more open to us. Just a practical, not a judgmental point of view. But there we can kind of feel, are these people in a high frequency because of their surroundings, despite of their surroundings? Have they understood unconditional love for themselves? Have they understood it's important and safe, or maybe not safe, but it's important to speak their own truth? And so in that level, we can not only gauge if the frequency is high, but also how grounded that high frequency is.
Yeah. Of course, I have to never leave a session without asking the status of the ET disclosure thing.
Yes. Well, we would say that's moving along.
It's moving along. That's
quite
good.
a bit.
All right.
Have you been following
the Israeli stuff? Yes, I have. I have, and that's a whole channeling session by itself. All that information. I will not get into that now because I have other questions.
Yes.
First, is there any ET bases in Norway, or has it ever been like a Draco base? If we look to Rjukan, is that something that you can tune into the coal mine there? I'm just so curious about this.
The answer is yes.
Really?
On the question when it comes to bases in Norway, we would definitely say in the north. The channel itself has no conceptual concept of Rjukan, so we find that hard to answer.
Okay, yeah, so it's in Telemark.
We feel it's much more north. It's much more in the northern regions, mid-northern regions, where there's very little human activity.
Okay, so it's in the mountains or underground. Is this something you can...
Yes, we would say in the mountains, underground. In a sense, if you're in the mountain, you are.
Okay, so, but ET bases or in collaboration with the humans or negative factions or military, or do you have any?
Let's see. We would say mostly there's ET bases, but we would say there's pretty neutral ones there. When it comes to reptilian-human connections, we feel there's a yes, but there's not a lot of more energy coming through.
Okay.
So
yeah, great.
We'll go with a yes.
Yeah, all right. Also, is my friend Troll, he's doing some research on the Svalbard Spitsbergen crash. I think it was in '56, and you spoke on this earlier and said it was some sort of hybrid or human collaboration thing. Do you have any information about, or any more information about this? It was a UFO crash in Spitsbergen, and it was in the 50s. So, does that resonate? Do you know any?
Do you have more information for us? Because we.
Yeah, it was the Grace, and it was a human collaboration effort. That's the last answer I got from you when I asked you about this crash last time.
But does your friend have more information about this? In a sense, has he dug up more information and more understanding about this? Because
no, I don't know if he. I think it's he's looking for more information. Probably he knows more than that, but I gave him the information about the Grace that you provided last time, and he was like, "Oh yeah, that makes so much sense." And
have you had a conversation with him, like maybe with a drink, and just discuss this with him and kind of philosophize a bit? Because
a little bit, but I can't really recall what his precise conclusion was about the thing. I think it was more like objective. They found this disc, and he's writing some sort of novel about this, which is partly fiction, but based on that crash. So it's just interesting to.
Well, we would suggest to ask him about how his book is going, and if he likes to have a chat with you about it, like take an evening, and just both of you bring in your knowledge and understandings where you are, and then kind of philosophize, maybe even connect to your own guides if you feel comfortable doing that, and see what can come through, because this is a bit of the dance thing. Like, we feel in that way that it's more up to you and your friend to take another step, and then we can see what you have figured out, and then we get permission to maybe give you more information. At the moment, we're not getting more information.
So who gives you permission?
We would say it's the Gaia field. The Gaia field in connection with your collective. And maybe even also some federation of planets, since that world has gained some traction these days. So there are these, you could say these, you could say they're a level of parents or people that watch over you from good intentions. But it's a bit like how you raise a child as well. Like if you just tell your kid what to do, it doesn't really work. But if they find something out and then they have a question, and then you can explain a bit more about it, and then they can go out in the world and go to the next step. But it needs to be this dance.
But what I find it so interesting that you said that the Federation might be.
Well, it is, yes.
They are the kind of an information filter between channelers and people here, in a sense?
In a sense, yes. You could say that we probably would say it's the handiest to see it as a kind of a loose council, or even an internet, almost a kind of AI internet consciousness.
Okay.
Where it taps into these various things, and then it decides
if it goes through or not.
Yes.
Wow.
Because
that's new information.
Yes. Is this first of all, is it relevant? But also because sometimes giving more information doesn't actually really help you.
Exactly.
Because it's the fun. How Bashar refers to it is like, we don't want to unwrap your Christmas presents. And we do understand that sometimes that sounds a bit silly, or there might be a bit disappointing energy, because the channel himself had that before as well. But this is simply how it works. Yes.
So, quick question about the Federation that I've written down.
Yes.
Who are they working for?
In a sense, you could say they're working for you.
But do they have bosses? Oh, okay, on a higher plane, yeah.
It's a bit like, are you working for the cells in your body? Yes, you keep them together, right? So this has to do with layers of consciousness. So it's not that they're working for an external authority. It's more that they're working for the more aligned versions of you. Just like you, in a sense, are you working for your children? You could say yes, but also no. It's so not like a job. It's more like a responsibility you love to do.
So is that why the Federation's work are not always helping humanity, but on a higher plane try to guide us through some sort of experience that will help us develop as a soul, in a sense?
Yes and no. In a sense, what you're doing is you're always, both individually and collectively, you're continuously creating timelines for yourself. You're continuously crystallizing timelines to have experiences. Then, having those experiences, you experience the contrast, and from the contrast, you gain your preferences. And then you act on your preferences, and you get new experiences, new contrast, new preference, new experience, new product, etc., etc. Now, again, we like to keep with a child-rearing paradox. If you see your child play, to you it might be silly, but as long as they're not really harming themselves, it's fine. So we would say generally you're doing your thing. And unless you're suddenly, with the nuclear weapons, for example, unless you see your kid suddenly grabbing the kitchen knife, you're like, oh, wait a minute, maybe not do that now. Go back with your normal toys. And sometimes you can see that, but this is, again, it refers a bit to what we just spoken about. Sometimes your child actually comes to you with a question because it wants to understand itself better. It wants to understand the world around itself better. And then generally, if there is this openness, like the question is in a sense already a part of the solution. It's the first, if you look at the stick, the question is the first part of the stick, and at the end is the understanding of the answer of it. But so basically, when a child gives you a question, they're showing you, this is the stick I have, and then we can help you with exploring the stick. And just like
this is what we are playing this game right now.
Exactly.
All right, that's awesome. One question I have about Bashar's race as a Sani.
Yes.
Is it right for them to bring in a hybrid race before full disclosure? Wouldn't that be a sneak invasion?
Are you worried about that?
No, I'm not worried about that. But this was a question that was discussed at the forum. And I find it, or it was Gigi Young who took up that question.
Yes.
And I find that question very, very interesting.
Could you rephrase it for us?
Yeah, okay. So the hybrid program,
yes.
If that is something that's going on in the background,
yes,
and the people are not aware that it even exists, alien life forms. So if we sneak that in the back door, yes. Wouldn't that be considered violation of free will or an invasion in a sense? If yes, people didn't have full disclosure first, to be actually aware that this is...
No, we would say no, because actually the people for whom it's relevant, they know. There hasn't been official conclusion yet, and you know a lot about the hybrid program. So this is about, the individuals being ahead of the curve of the collective. And like the hybrid program has been playing for almost 50 years now, if not longer, 50, 60 years. So there's a lot of people that actually have... you could definitely say that the people in the beginning, that was a huge shock for them. But we would say at this stage, there's not a... What we feel a bit here is also how you as an individual understand your reality to work. And that's very logical, because we would say 99.5% of your peers on this planet believe that it works the same way. And you could say that... We don't know if this makes sense at all, but you could in a sense say that you all create your own experience of reality. And you can interact with each other's experience of your reality, but the idea that there is one subjective, collective consciousness reality is actually only in your mind.
Yeah.
It's not really there.
No.
And
True.
you only attract different viewpoints to play with those things. So if you understand it from that level, the question kind of falls away.
So many perspectives on reality. It's crazy.
So in that sense, to go back to then G.G. Younger question, we would say how we have understood your question is that the people that need to know about the hybrid program before full disclosure already know about it or will learn about it. So in that sense, there is no problem from our perspective.
No, exactly. Because it's been going on for so long and it's part of the Earth's destiny, I guess.
Yes.
And disclosure is just part of that program. Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We can say, because the channel was part of G.G. Younger saying as well, and we've discussed this in another channel as well, we would definitely say the interaction with the Greys and the hybrid agenda is a much more physical one. So you could say it's on a much more... You could say it's on a much more lower frequency than the interaction with, for example, Pleiadians or us Arcturians, but that doesn't make it more valuable. It also means that it actually helped a lot of humans to awaken to these things, and that helped the whole collective. It even helped even the channel. It really helped him to learn about Bashar and the hybrid project, and then he could connect to these other frequencies. But it's a bit like, how do you choose to learn? Like a lot of people need to walk into a wall a couple of times and then get a bit of a headache and maybe a broken nose, and then they understand that maybe it's better to walk a different path. And you could say that the Greys were willing to provide one or a couple of those walls for you. And you can either say that I really hurt my nose, that's a bad thing. Well, maybe, but it also helped you not walk off a cliff. So it really depends upon your own judgment upon this.
Yeah. Okay, a really funny question.
Yes.
What would we consider to be the weirdest oxygen breathing 3D life form in this galaxy?
We see something with a very long nose.
Okay, like an elephant?
Yes, somewhat like not
like
as
from
long.
Fantorangen?
Yes. And you have a type of monkey with very big noses as well.
Okay.
We would feel that would be for you the funniest.
Okay.
Or definitely in that area.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so I'm bordering into something personal now. So what was the CE5 thing we had last time? It was fantastic, but we didn't, see anything, not even satellites. So that was weird by itself. But did anybody pick up our signals? That would be my first question.
Well, yes. Yes.
Okay.
And there was even some response as well. So, for example, but the channel himself, he felt this audio thing, and he felt a shift in energy and had a little audio experience. And then Mary had a certain experience in her dreams afterwards. So we also, in that sense, and we don't know if you had any experiences that you are aware of during or after.
Nothing I can pinpoint, no.
But it might be good to have a talk with the whole group about it. But we would say so there was some interaction, but also you could say to maybe, well, let's say that don't see it as something you did wrong as a group or as an individual.
No.
Let's put it that way. It's more that first of all, it was rather difficult to do certain showings because there's a lot of stuff going on. So a lot of ships are very busy with doing a lot of grid work. doing a couple of over hours. So there wasn't a lot of opportunity for this.